with this, we move to the next session, a very important session on industry, academia, partnership. What are the opportunities? What are the areas where industry and academia can partner? And it's not often that we can see that the directors of IITs, IIMs all sitting together for a panel. So huge round of applause for eminent panel will be coming on stage. So over to you, Rajneesh. Please welcome all our esteemed dignitaries for the next panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shobik. So as mentioned, perhaps one of the most awaited panel discussions of these two-day APAC 4th Global Education and Skills Conclave, where we have the decision makers from the top IITs, IIMs and NITs assembled within one room and on the dais. So it's my pleasure to welcome the panelists. May I welcome Professor Lakshmidhar Behera, Director IIT Mandi. A round of applause for Professor Behera. Next, we have Dr. A.M. Rawani, Director, National Institute of Technology, Raipur. Welcome, Dr. Rawani. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, Director, IIT IIM Amritsar. Welcome, sir. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor B.S. Murthy, Director, IIT Hyderabad. Welcome, Professor Murthy. The only lady on the panel, Dr. Vinita Sahai, Director, IIM Bodh Gaya. Professor Mahesh Chandra Govil, Director, NIT Sikkim. And from the, to get the industry perspective, may I welcome Dipankar Bhattacharya. He's from Autodesk. He's the head of India and ASEAN for education experiences with Autodesk. Round of applause for Dipankar. So primarily the way we would look at it is we will go to each of the panelists with more or less a similar set of questions, and we would like to elicit your views on, so we will restrict it to maybe two questions, two key areas, and from the academicians we would like to know that perspective. And Dipankar is here from the industry perspective, because ultimately the topic is on industry-academia collaboration. So whenever we talk of collaboration, both the stakeholders have to be equally proactive, otherwise ultimately the synergy would not happen. So the question is basically one, very fundamentally, as sort of representing the premier institutions in the academic landscape of the country. What are your views? Why do you feel there is still a lack amongst even the premier education institutions in India that we do not have the academia-industrial collaboration to the extent which we see in some of these Ivy League schools, maybe, and even a lot of the European, the French and those institutions, we don't see it. There are a lot of center of excellences in those academic institutions which are often run and funded. Like Intel is very deeply entrenched in Stanford, maybe. So why don't we see that level of collaboration? The collaboration here is still primarily restricted to the placement and those sort of things. But beyond that, more research-oriented, the centers of excellences, what's the fundamental bottleneck here? And I would like to start with Professor Behera on this. What's your view, sir?
Thank you. I think I won't say that academia and industry interaction is not there. I personally at IIT Kanpur became part of connecting with TCS and participating in Amazon Robotics Challenge, and 2 times, and then that helped us to forge a partnership that resulted TCS to establish certain homegrown products, resulted joint publications, resulted in patents. I think it's a mindset. We just have to have an attitude. Nowadays, all IITs are focusing on research park, where they are trying to bring in industries. By that process, industry gets access to the intellectual power in the terms of faculty, students, access to the lab facilities that are there, where they can actually collaborate with the academics and develop the proof of concept, at least take the product to the TRL 6 or 7, and from there it can go to the market. I think there are initiatives coming up, at least in major IITs we have seen this. Even at IIT Mandi, we are trying to replicate the similar thing. Yes, it is not there in the scale that is expected. But if we work in that pursuit, I think a great deal of the win-win situation can be established between academia and industry. The most fundamental issue here is that the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? Stakeholder from the academic perspective is the faculty members and the students. And from the industry perspective, those who are working in the R&D. So we have to look at those industries, like Samsung have their own program. The Amazon, they have their own program. Qualcomm, they have their own program to get connected to the academia. So there are many industry who have the research focus, they naturally get connected to the industry. So I don't think there is an issue. And as far as the Indian industry is concerned, I find TCS also to Wipro. They are very good at taking the ideas, and if there are an idea, they come forward. They come also with the problems. Bail also another company, Indian company, that also comes forward, looks for the academia collaboration. I think we have to find a win-win situation from both the sides. More interaction is necessary to create an ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely, I didn't mean to that extent that there is no collaboration in Indian. Definitely there is collaboration. But yes, as you mentioned, that it's still not to that level. And maybe one point where this research part, even the examples you had given, in India you mentioned examples of TCS or Wipro, which are predominantly services companies, IT services companies. On the other hand, the global examples you gave, Qualcomm or Amazon or even Samsung, which are predominantly R&D, the product-based R&D. So maybe therein lies one of the reasons.
Let me tell you, TCS spends more than 1,000 crore per year in research. The figure, if I want to give you, so that's it may not be as big amount, but that's a substantial
Sure.
amount. Yeah.
Okay. Next I will come to you, Dr. Rawani, with the same question. What are your views? Would you agree with Professor Behra, or you would have some other views on this topic?
Yeah, very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to share my views with all of you. I agree with Professor Behra what he has mentioned, but most important thing is that except IITs and few renowned institutes, NITs, if we see across the country, many institutes are there, though they recognize the importance of the institute-industry collaboration, but the collaboration is not happening as it should. The importance of the institute-industry collaboration is well talked about. If we look back, I remember when I was a student from that time, those days we are always talking about the collaboration, interaction and collaboration and so many things, but it is not happening to the extent which is actually the need of the hour. I think there are a couple of reasons for that, why it is not happening in all the institute except IITs and NITs and good institutes. The reason might be the mindset. As Professor said that the mindset should be there for the collaboration. It should be a proactive approach from both the stakeholders, whether it is an institute or industry. It is a kind of win-win situation. If I see today, the industries are facing many technical issues, many technical problems. And institutes also have to have their curriculum design so as to prepare the students to face the industries, to satisfy the needs of the industry. So survival and growth of the industries, as well as the survival and growth of the institute, both is very difficult and both is competitive. So when they join hands together, when they really understand that they are going to satisfy the needs of each other, then definitely it will be a win-win situation and it will be a real, collaboration. The reason might be institutes are having lot of technical expertise, knowledge is there, but industry sometimes feel that the institutes are carrying out only theoretical work. To some extent they are true. If we look at the PhDs, what we produce, main focus today is submission of the PhD, and out of the PhD, how many research papers are published. That may be the criteria usually for the submission of the thesis. Even in most of the institutes, that is the criteria, that if you publish 2 papers, 3 papers, then only you will be allowed to submit your PhD thesis. So here our focus is on the theoretical work. So a couple of, differences are also there. A couple of theses are converted into, certain commercial ideas as well. The industry should understand that the institutes are not having only the theoretical ideas, they are there to solve their practical problems. Secondly, at the institute, the knowledgeable faculty are available there. Lot of manpower in terms of the student force is available with the institutes. So actually the institutes have to market their potential, that yes, they have this kind of knowledge. I many times feel that very neighboring institutes having a lot of expertise, but the nearby industry may not be approaching that institute. They more believe on their internal R&D rather than approaching the institutes. So there is a need of marketing of the available, expertise available with the institute. Then they can come closer. And the attitude of the industry is also not very much encouraging. They should understand the capability of the institutes. Is a kind of regular process. What happens, I observe that the institutes come forward, they sign MOUs sometimes, and they join hands with the industry, but that might be on ad hoc basis. That is not on a regular basis. The real thing is here that the institute and industry should collaborate on a regular basis. It should be a continuous effort. So that should not be merely a interaction or collaboration. It should be a partnership. Then only it will be a win-win situation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an important point that you mentioned about this marketing, the need of the institute to market their expertise and research capabilities, and only then, and obviously there has to be more encouragement from the industry side. Only then it can be a mutually win-win situation. I will come next to Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, and we were having a discussion just before this, and you were mentioning about the brain drain. So the same question when I put to you, maybe if this industry academia collaboration can scale up better in India, maybe we will be able to some extent reduce the brain drain also. So what's your views on that?
Thank you for the opportunity. I can tell you from both sides, I was in the industry first before actually moving into academy. Even in our own company, we were doing R&D, which was not even known to our own employees. Okay, it was considered as a high secret event. We were doing something on this turbocharger and all that. Now, from a behavioral side, I would consider that to be a mental bottleneck on the part of the industry, where there is lack of trust with the academics that, if we do something, that will this actually go out. So given that context, I think that's a mental bottleneck that we must break into and then open that up. The second thing I also would say, we were talking about before, around the world, if you look at some of the best practices model, right, like in Edmonton, Canada, Google opened up their Google Mind, for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and reinforcement learning, and all that. University of Alberta has benefited immensely as a result of that, because both institutions, they collaborate very highly, and they even set up centers, like they are supported in a variety of fields like endowed professorship and doctoral PhD thesis supports and so on and so forth. I can give you several examples. I think University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, right, a center was set up for automotive engines, right, between Sweden and I think General Motors and the institution. And that is probably a model. I don't know how much it exists in the IITs here. That's probably a model that we can look at, where there are centers of excellence like Tamil Nadu, the automotive industry, and Telangana, you have this software development. These are something that we can really look at. But now that I'm in the management institute, heading a management institution, I can honestly tell you that the industry academia collaboration is highly restricted to internship for our students. And I think in the morning, I don't know how many of you were there in the NIR of this one, a year before, they take the interns and then say, we are hiring this person so that we can train them. So management institutes and industry collaboration is highly restricted compared to the engineering institutions. But also I think government also has a role to play here, meaning that if you really, again, look at US, which has produced a number of important patents and all that. Take a company like defense industry. Defense industry gives contract to the government, gives the contract to these companies, and they collaborate with the universities, in order to really solve a real world problem. I think it's not, or I wouldn't just call it as an industry academia collaboration, but also the ecosystem there is highly interdependent and intertwined. I think we should actually strive for that in terms of public policy also.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks. Very important point. We were talking about research. Perhaps you mentioned, if we look at the number of patents coming out of India compared to what comes out of US, that's probably the outcome of the lack of research or high-scale research activities, and can be one of the valid reasons.
Yeah, just to clarify, in India also, for example, like ISROs and DRDOs, they tend to operate in isolation, right? When they can very well exploit the knowledge base available with IITs and other top institutions. I don't know why there is the disconnect there.
Sure. My next question on the list was to Professor Murthy, but before that, I'd like to mention Professor Behera has a flight to catch. I would allow you to leave, but just my second question I'll ask you first. So this question is, even yesterday during one of the panel discussions, we talked about that. One of the reasons is often, though in premier institutions, the quality of faculty is definitely better than other institutions, but there is a feeling that often there is a lack of industry advances very quickly. There is an obsolescence of knowledge that happens very fast. So are the faculties of even the premier education institutions able to keep up with that, because that's relevant, whether the students are ultimately taught the current industry relevant things, and maybe the need for more experiential kind of learning. So are the Indian institutions doing that?
Yeah, very good question actually. You are right actually. The user, what is looking for is with industry. As an academia, we are aware of research challenges within the published papers. So the real challenges, what user is looking, that industry has. And that is the reason why industry academia is necessary to take the country together. So what you said is good point that yes, Samsung, Qualcomm, Intel, these are all research-based industry. True. They create technology. We don't have. I would say TCS has gone beyond its mandate and is supporting research, but they are also slowly bringing some research-based product. But which is this is something that we have to acknowledge, that we don't have such industrial houses. But still, if you see ISRO has a very good academic exchange, at least with IITs. So also DRDO, and given this Made in India slogan, that particularly the defense is purchasing everything from outside. If that, in some, some step, like now 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, if we chalk out a proper plan and create an ecosystem, that would really help. I just want to give little example here, the China story. Of course, now India and China, the relationship is so bad, but in 2015, I was given the guest professor in Hangzhou Dianji University. The Chinese university vice chairman personally came, met me, and I went there. And I saw the ecosystem in China, how it works. In China, government gives the responsibility to every university on a specific area to contribute to the nation building. So the mandate is there. This mandate is not there in India. So this is something lacking. Every country has their own model. Like Sweden, my good friend, the director of IIT Ropert, he talks about how Uppsala University and the industries around, they collaborate together and develop a product. So every country has their own story. Like Zhejiang University, what Honeywell does, what ABB does, all control standards are built in that university. This is a mandate given there. So I think, alone, suppose I sit in IIT Mandi thinking that how can I contribute to the nation building, it will not work.
True.
For that to happen, the government, the industry, and academia together have to check out a problem. And the responsibility must be also, because government is spending money on these premier institutes. So government must also encash things. So that loop is not complete. And time has come that we talk about this.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Professor Behra. I know you have a flight to catch. And thanks for the answer. Okay. Okay. Sure. Thanks a lot. A round of applause for Professor Behra. So, Professor Murthy, now I'll come to you again, the first round of question. And what Professor Nagarajan and Professor Behra both talked about, there's a third stakeholder in the ecosystem, it seems to be there, who can impact government, we heard from this industry academia. So first, what are your views on the lack of collaboration to that extent? And can government act as a sort of catalyst to help better collaboration between the two?
Yeah, thank you, first of all. I would say this, that if you look at most of the overseas institutions, the kind of collaborations that we are all talking about, it's all because to a large extent the industries there have this feeling that we should develop things ourselves. Somehow India, this has not been very strong. If you look at quite a number of manufacturing industries, I'm more familiar with them rather than the software industries. So people have this tendency of importing things for quite some time. As long as this importing kept on happening, obviously the need for looking for developing things on your own did not happen to a large extent. It is now you start seeing this more and more, last 10 years, I would say more 5 years, that there is more emphasis on the so-called Atmanirbhar Bharat and developing things on our own. For example, just look at DRDO. Just now, Professor also mentioned about DRDO. It has been told to DRDO by 2030, your imports have to come down by 50%. How do? You find out how you do. And this has happened. And as a result now, defense is coming forward. For example, DRDO is setting up something called DIA. I do not know how many of you have heard of this. Defense Industry Academia Center of Excellence. There are about 10 such DIA COEs coming up. IIT Hyderabad is getting one of those. Okay, where a large amount of money will be put, but clearly linking an industry so that products come out. Okay, and this is something which is happening now, and you start seeing more and more with other. For example, just now Greenco has signed an MOU with us to put 100 crores at IIT Hyderabad, so to set up a school for what we call it as sustainability. Okay, so people are seeing. The reason is we have a Department of Climate Change, which most of the other IITs do not have. They have seen that there is a strength here, that let us put money. For example, Scient has come up, put 20 crores to start a school of what is called innovation and entrepreneurship. We have a Department of Entrepreneurship at an IIT Hyderabad. So they have seen that yes, there is a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship. For example, we give 6 credits to a student who is willing to work on an innovative idea even in the first semester of BTech. We give a semester break to them and give them 6 credits for that. For example, most of the internships that we talk about are all typical summer interns. And there is no credits for that in any IIT. Whereas we have now started giving 6 credits to an internship, which is a semester-long internship which we have started. We have started how to get connected to industry. For example, we started a course called Industry Lectures, which is a mandatory course for all MTechs at IIT Hyderabad. One credit course, that means 14 lectures by 14 different industries, talking about what are the exciting things that they are doing. And at the end of it, we ask them, do you have any problems that can be solved in 1 year? Because our MTech students have 1 full year of project. It is like a year-long internship for the industry and a project for the student. And right now, I can confidently say 60% of our projects, MTech projects, are all industry-defined problems. So what I'm saying is there has to be certain initiatives. I mean, somehow we have been talking about this, the valley of significant gap between the industry and academia, but somebody has to take initiatives. Okay? And the initiatives, each one of us have been waiting for somebody else to take initiative, and this has started bringing a change. Once we started this, in addition we said, why don't we reach out to industry? Quite a number of industry people have a BTech done, they want to go and do an MTech, but they cannot take a 1 year leave or 2 years leave. If an industry can give 1 year leave to an employee, they can leave him forever. Okay, so we started what is called online MTech programs. We said we will teach you in the evening hours. You come to IIT Hyderabad only to collect the degree certificate on the day of the convocation. So this has helped. We even said you can do a PhD with us without the need of coming to an IIT. So what I am trying to say is we have to learn how to get connected. Sure. And this is happening, and you would see. For example, we have a number of programs now. We have a program, an MTech in e-waste management with CMET. We have started 3 master programs with the healthcare industry. One with AIG in Hyderabad, Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, where we say an MTech in medical device innovation, where the student spends 4 months in the hospital, comes out and says these are all problems that the patients are facing, picks up one problem, at the end of 2 years MTech, he has a prototype in hand.
Okay.
So these things are important. Okay. We have started an MTech in ophthalmic engineering with LV Prasad Eye Institute. So it is important to find out where are the gaps. We have started a number of new interdisciplinary MTech programs, finding out what does the industry want. So it is important that every institution, last 2 years, I would say COVID has given us a chance to introspect, to find out what does the industry need. So this is important. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. So 2 very important things you mentioned, maybe to make the learning more industry relevant, these industry relevant courses, which were maybe not there originally in the curriculum, but which has got incorporated now. You also endorsed the point that there has to be some policy level support, like for the defense. One interesting thing are these DIA, COEs you mentioned, all 10 are in academic institutions only.
They are set up in academic institutions, but for each of those, there are a few industries which are connected.
Okay.
Okay. So that is very important. Without an industry connect, a COE is not given.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Vinita, I'll come to you next. Again, your views on the industry-academia collaboration and what is lacking.
Here's one. So thank you, APAC, for conducting this. Well, there are all academicians sitting here, and there is a need for reflection, but reflection we could have done even in our respective institutions. So what is missing is that interface between industry and us. So a humble request, this is a great platform that we have created, but somewhere we have to also create a platform where we come together. So right now, the number of academicians possibly is much more than maybe the industry partners. But Professor from IIT Hyderabad had set this tone, very encouraging. You know, there are issues. We keep talking about that our graduates are not employable. And at the other end, we also keep talking about that 40% of IITs and IIMs are running, or like we all are running at 40% faculty capacity or whatever. But one thing I must also congratulate APAC is for, giving the theme so accurately, that Indian Industry Academia Partnership, what are the next milestones? Because very rarely do we talk about what to do next. We keep coming, we keep discussing, but then what? So good that at least today we are talking about that what needs to be done. And yes, you rightly pointed out that if we compare our business school with our business school in the Western world, 2 differences are very, very stark. One is that entrepreneurship culture, and second is industry partnership. So, okay, then what? So, luckily, of late, maybe I live with very young people, so I'm very, very optimistic about the way going forward. And Professor from IIT Hyderabad has just added more further flavor to it, that we must quickly discuss, yes, there are problems, then what next? So how I see it coming from a relatively new business school is, yes, we need to sit together and discuss and create really win-win symbiotic relationships, whether it is in form of MOUs or Center for Excellence and so on and so forth. And somebody was also mentioning about that how our faculty needs to be. So we all know the stages. First itself is the content visualization or prediction or estimation that going forward what is needed. Like I'm a marketing professor, and being in the role of director, I really dread going back to teaching because marketing has changed in the last 5 years. And in coming 5 years, it's going to be absolutely different. So somebody from industry definitely can help us guide that what could be the course outline for the future. So the whole estimation and prediction of going forward, what's going to be there. That again, putting it into creation of content. Now, once the content is created, somebody also mentioned that how Corona has been such a blessing in disguise. And coming from Bodh Gaya, yes, geographies have ceased to exist. So today I can actually have a industry practitioner from Bangalore coming into my classroom, which is so heartening. And let's make use of this, because as professors, we were always very wary of technology, but Corona at one go has made it disappear. Even for students, even for us. So I think today it is much easy for industry practitioner to come into our class, actually hop in and sit there and co-create the class with the theoretical person. I've seen it dovetail like music. I've seen professors enjoying it, I've seen students enjoying it, and I think that's the great future. And I don't know, where will I find that platform where we will, we will exert it on the industry practitioners, ki come on, let's get going. So that is one thing which is very doable. So content estimation, prediction, content creation, content delivery, and finally experiential learning. So much more can be done over the net. Most of the businesses, now one thing again, Corona has said that businesses can be run over the net. So again, if businesses can be run, so can be short-term projects, live projects, small guest assignments, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that we can do in future. Only thing is we have to just quickly create a platform where we can discuss it together. And rather than lamenting about the fact that there is a lack of coordination, let's quickly come together and create that coordination. And I would urge institutions like APAC that let's create few more platforms like this where we can be face-to-face, directly in touch with industry who are ready to willing to partner with institutions like us.
Sure. Thanks. And maybe one point you mentioned, the difference between Indian business schools and some of the more developed country business schools, the entrepreneurship spirit, that's hoping changing for the better, looking at the number of unicorns and startups that in the last few years have come up in India. Professor Mahesh Chandra Govil, I'll come to you next with your views on the lack of industry-academia collaboration.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank APAC for giving us the opportunity to be here. And of course, topic is very relevant and important one. And I look this in the prospect of diversity. We can see the diversity in the institution in India. It's a big country and we know the population is large, number of institutions are large. And the student capacity and quality is also at times being discussed, right? We belong to the Institute of National Importance, therefore we are being blessed with the good students, and therefore sometimes these tasks become little easier to us, institute in industry interaction, because of the name of the NIT, IIT, the industry comes to us and placement, so many things are there. But I'm looking from this industry, institute academia interaction discussion from last 30-40 years. And of course, the situation has now improved a lot. We can't say that it is the same situation 5 years down the line. But I see some of the factors which are very, very important. One is, of course, we know who are the stakeholders: student, faculty, staff, and industry. These are the four, and the government is, of course, is there. But I found even in the there is a lack of interest in the faculty and the staff also. While we go to the industry, sign MOU, and at times that MOU is within the file. So that is not really happening. So we have to give a proper structure for executing this industry academia interaction. Even when we sign the MOU among the academia, the execution is not really happening. We are thankful to IIT Hyderabad. We signed the MOU from Sikkim. And now IITs are coming up with a very nice schemes of allowing the student from the other institutions, not only NITs, but from the private institutions also, to come over there for 1 year or the 6 months. And I think this is really a very, very nice step on the part of the IITs, so that the student can perceive what is the environment of an good institution is. This is one. But when it comes to the industry and academia, I think we both are 50-50 equally responsible for that. Even when you talk about the curriculum development, I'm sorry to say, but it's my personal 35 years of experience. It's not happening actually. When we discuss curriculum, the inputs are not proper from the industry. At times we are not agreeing right what to be delivered to the students. So designing a curriculum itself is a daunting task still. Another part which is very, very important is the laboratory. When it comes to the engineering, and now I think it's the management also, I think laboratories are somewhere going to back of you can say the academics. And rather it should be, I think, given a much better importance than your theoretical input. So I believe IITs have a very good laboratories. NITs also have a very good, you can say, laboratories. But when you go to the second level or the third level institutions, the laboratories are not there. If the laboratories are there, the training to the students is missing, totally missing. Sometimes the labs are on the blackboards. It's really funny. So when we are talking about the students are not ready for the industry, and sometimes NASCOM ke only 20% or the 25 students are placeable, I think this is a big question for all of us as an industrialist. Oh, sorry, as an academician. So I believe the industry has to come forward also, because I said both are 50-50 responsible for. There is a lack of interest in the industry also. There is a lack of interest in the we people also. So I believe faculty should be motivated. And another important question is, unless until you train your faculty, it's not going to be really happening. Okay. So I believe the faculty must be sent at least 2 to 3 months training to the faculty, to the industry, and industry must accept faculty as their employee and train them on the technologies.
Okay.
So this is, I think, important factors. Thank you.
So a very important suggestion in terms of faculty from the institutions going to the industry and get proper, I won't maybe call that training, because obviously the faculties, but reorientation, I may say, industrial reorientation. So next I'll come to you, Dipankar. Now you have heard from the other side, from all the academicians, and many of them, the common consensus has been that industry still has not played its role in full. So what is your perspective in terms of what role or responsibility industry has there? And maybe very briefly, yesterday during the inaugural session, you had mentioned about a point being all students are going for computer science courses. There are not many takers for civil or mechanical. So does therein lie one of the reasons for why this collaboration is still not happening to that extent? Your views?
Yeah, thanks. I think I am on the other side. So the eminent academicians from premier institutes have given their views. So I have just jotted down a few points as I was sitting here. If you look at collaboration between academia and industry, there are three aspects of this collaboration. One is, Professor from IIT Hyderabad already mentioned about internship opportunities in the industry, which is also a kind of industry academia collaboration. If you look at this particular aspects, I don't see very many colleges in the country today who have a formal internship program for 6 months. Because if it is a 1 or 2 months internship, it really doesn't achieve the purpose. My own son.
Here, if I may interrupt here, yes, I agree with you. But in many cases, we have seen even the industry really providing the interns end up being the interns doing rudimentary things, not the actual hands-on training, maybe. So, is there some responsibility of the industry here also?
Yeah, there is a response.
That is because it is very short.
Short.
If it is long,
Yes.
every industry will be able to.
Like for example, BITS Pilani has a 6 months compulsory internship in the final year, okay? And this is not today. They are doing it, I think, for more than 2 decades now. So if you really look at my own younger son is doing an internship for 2 months at IISc. So he's been given this rudiment because the time is short. The professor knows that this is a short-term thing which is being done between IISc and the college, and there is no significant output that, whether it is for 6 months. So that is, I think, that is where I think we really need to, both industry and academia need to work together, and the policy makers, because it needs a change in the system. Whereas the national education policy has been announced, I think this is one piece, I don't know whether it is really there, this is one missing piece. The second thing is the industry courses, which again Professor from IIT Hyderabad mentioned. There are not very many courses which are in association with the industry. I see some courses, I was in VIT Vellore, there's a course in code delivered by TCS. We as Autodesk have gone to multiple institutes and talked to institutes that can we run a new course, let it be an elective course, 1 credit, 2 credit, whatever, whether that can be done. I don't see much of a traction in that, because the thing is we are governed in an academic system which is very constrained. If IITs have more autonomy, NITs have autonomy, but whatever the rest of the ecosystem, I think that's one aspect. The third aspect is what we mentioned, call about the center of excellence. Okay. Now, center of excellence is a concept, where I see a lot of traction that is happening, but again, it is restricted with collaboration in the premier institutes of the country. Okay. It has not percolated to the next tier 2 and tier 3 institutes. So, from our side, we are making a conscious effort, Autodesk and other industry stakeholders are making a conscious effort to go even to the tier 2 and tier 3 universities and institutes, because that is a need of the hour. Because while IITs are the premier institutes, IIMs are the premier management institutes of the country, but if you look at the TAM, the TAM lies in the next segment of the market. And the other important point is the people who stay back in the country are from that segment of the market. That is, so if with due respect to IITs, I think the large population from the IITs, they get into maybe other jobs which may not be relevant to engineering with due respect to them, or they get into other research areas abroad. Okay, so I think the next tier 2 and tier 3 should be the focus. I think there is a lot of opportunity there. There is already a lot of industry collaboration in the tier 1 institutes with all the IITs, NITs and all. But I think the focus should be on the larger TAM, because that is where we will generate the talent pool. And I'm linking this to my statement yesterday about the lack of, mechanical and civil engineers who can fit into the requirements of the industry. So I think that is where the marriage or the merger should happen. in terms of the collaboration. I can go on and on talking about this subject, very close to my heart, but these are some of the points. The last point which I want to mention is, I think the faculties in the institutes must have industry experience, okay? I think that is one thing which is lacking today. The former director of IIT Kanpur, I had a long chat with him. He mentioned this point to me that our interview panel, this is not the criteria in the job description that he must have so many years of experience in that particular domain, in whichever he is applying to. So I leave with these few thoughts from my side. Thank you.
Thanks. And that's the last point that you mentioned is critical. It's not just industry knowledge, but very current industry knowledge or reorientation, as Professor Mahesh mentioned earlier, that maybe sending the faculty to industry to get reoriented is a need of the hour. So I will now come to each of the panelists, starting with Dr. Ravani, and very briefly. Sure. Very briefly, 1 minute each. As Dr. Vinita mentioned, the important thing is identify the next milestone. What next? So one action which you feel immediately needs to be done, or it might have started happening already, or needs to be done to rectify the situation. Dr. Ravani.
One I cannot say, but 2, 3 I can definitely say. Because with one only we cannot be satisfied having a good collaboration with the industries. So first of all, the internship is a thing which should be there for the students, and that too semester long internship. I am happy to share that NIT Raipur were earlier having only 1 month in training program. From 2019 we have revised the curriculum, and now we are having the one full semester internship program for the students. This has many advantages, every one of us knows that. Secondly, that the mindset we were talking about in the earlier discussion. So actually the focus of the institute, particularly the second and third level institutes, what we were talking about, the focus is always on teaching the students, not beyond that. So that there is a need of changing this particular attitude, and that is possible that they should have in their mission and vision that the collaboration should be there, that should be there. So mission, vision should be there, and faculty should be facilitated. For that, a properly defined procedure should be in place. It should not be on ad hoc basis, as one industry is approaching some different procedure, and every time we are exploring that how we can collaborate and how we can do the things. That should be a certain standard practices that should be adopted in the institute. And thirdly, I should say that the government support is a must. The government should make it a mandatory for the industries that they should collaborate with the institute. They should have some kind of partnership with the institutes. As in Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, there is a mandatory that each of the participating institute, they have to adopt 5 villages. Similarly, this kind of thing should be there, that the industry should adopt or partner, I should not say adopt, partner with so many academic institutes. So such kind of mandate will definitely help in a closer collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Nagarajan, 1 minute, your 1 minute and your views.
I would also say that, this UGC and other guidelines, even the MBA program, that's the one I can talk about. I feel that the program length is too much, which doesn't allow the students to go for the industry internship for a longer period of time. Okay, that should be revisited to see whether we need too many courses in the curriculum, right, at the expense of students learning something from the industry. Okay, that's one. Second thing, most of the time this ranking and all that, we look at the number of faculty with PhD. So as a head of the institution, it puts pressure on me to hire more PhDs in the faculty as opposed to industry people, right? Where the interface can take place. So that's also something at the policy level we need a little bit clearer direction.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Murthy. Your 1 minute.
Yeah. So as you would always know that any of these European other countries, they have become strong because of a very strong manufacturing power. Through just a service sector, no country can really become. So that has happened because, as you all have been talking, that there was a strong interaction. So, as Professor pointed out, one possibility should be that if industry wants the manufacturing aspect to grow in academics, this kind of a mentoring institutions by the industry are kind of adopting a few institutions. I was on the board of some of the private colleges. Whenever they are saying that we are trying to close civil, we are trying to close mechanical, this is exactly what I used to say. That bring some industries who will adopt your college, okay, to ensure that these students and faculty spend some time in the industry, and automatically they will see that there is a use of such a mentorship. And that, I think, is very important. Similarly, when you are doing the curriculum, there has to be an industry involvement. For example, right now we have brought out an MTech program in electronic packaging, first time in the country, where we have a tie-up with Qualcomm, we have a tie-up with MOSCHIP, we have a tie-up with AMD, that all our students do their projects there, okay, and they have a laboratory exposure there. So all the design aspects are taught at IIT, all the fab aspects are taught at these industries. So this kind of a collaborative programs, if you start bringing, then it's a win-win for both, okay?
Thank you. So innovative collaborative programs. Dr. Vinita, your 1 minute now.
I think blueprint, we all know that we just have to make it happen. At least 20% of the classes should be outsourced to industry practitioners. We must have industry practitioners on all our advisory boards, whether it is at an institution level or at an area level or a subject or domain knowledge level. This is a nice suggestion that internships should be lengthened for industry to make some use of the talent available, because in the shorter duration, even the talent is not able to add much value and industry doesn't see it that seriously. And yes, mandate, I'm not too sure, because then we're leaving it to the government, and governance, a government has too many things on hands. So, but yes, coming from IIMs, I guess two of us are sitting there, and one day 20 of us can sit together and we can decide amongst ourselves that possibly some of the institutions take lead in some of the areas which the country needs. And because that would be the nice way to, make our autonomy much more effective. Because if we have been given that, it should be put to use. So these are some of the thoughts which are coming to my mind as of now. But yes, rather than, one thing is for very sure, that rather than cribbing about it and lamenting about it, time has come to us to make it happen, and nobody else than us who has to make it happen. As a teacher, I think sitting all of us, I've always felt that sense of urgency, because if not now, then when? And if not we, then who? Because with the population of 70% in the age group of 19 to 25, if this time around we do not scale up, we do not scale up, we do not empower our young people, sorry, this time we will not have Britishers to blame, foreign rules to blame. The blame will lie squarely on us, people who are in the education sector. So I think the whole idea is let's join hands and make it happen. That's the spirit with which India has to operate now.
Thanks. So your mantra is make it happen, and very important that those 2 points you mentioned. If not we, then who? And if not now, then when? Professor Mahesh, your 1 minute.
Okay. So first, I think I should answer the question of mechanical and civil engineering. It's not like that the students are not willing to go to their parent departments of civil engineering, but the fact is that the package which is available in these industries as compared to IT industry is too less. That is the one question, and thereby most of the students wants to get entered into the computer science and engineering. This is a big reason, not availability. Second, I think we have seen now we are sort of this semiconductor, okay, even for your this automobile industry. And slowly, whatever establishment was there for the semiconductor industry, they have not performed well. So I think we have to boost the industrial setup in the certain area where they are the futuristic, and so that we can really think of this real industry and institute interaction. Unless until we have an industry, how can we think of this in reality, right? So that is must, and we have already discussed, I think faculty has to be trained properly. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So this is, I think, important. Thank you.
So the semiconductor part, maybe till fabs don't come up in India, maybe this will remain a challenge always.
They are coming up, sir. In 3
Yes.
years you will see it. A lot of work happening there.
Okay, so Dipankar, you have the last word and your 1 minute time.
Okay, difficult to cover in 1 minute. I'll try my best. So I am just relating this initiative called Making Rebuilding India Initiative, which is an initiative of Niti Aayog and the Berkeley Innovation Forum to train 600 million youths across the country over the next so many years. So I think this is an initiative which needs the industry-academic collaboration. I firmly believe is a marriage where both the parties need to be proactive and come together. And if we can align with some of the initiative, because if you align to this kind of initiative, and this is across different sectors, this is not only manufacturing or design, across different sectors. So my humble request would be that as premier institutes like IITs and IIMs can take the lead, I would suggest some kind of a hub and a spoke model, like for example, we have IIT Hyderabad. If they, if Autodesk is associated with them as a center of excellence, run initiatives, but expand that and scale that to the next set of tier institutes with IIT Hyderabad as the nodal center. So similarly, we have IITs in all regions, other premier institutes. That is how it will scale and reach the broader education ecosystem of the country to reach this goal of skilling 600 million youth. That's my take.
Sure. Thanks. So we have paucity of time, so we have to conclude. Otherwise, it was a very interesting discussion and there were more points which could have been discussed. So before we let all the panelists assemble, we would like to, all of you know that we had an awards felicitation yesterday evening, and Professor B.S. Murthy, Director IIT Hyderabad, was not present there. So we would first like to felicitate Dr. B.S. Murthy here. And may I request Gopi Krishna Arora from APAC News Network to come on stage. Here. We would like to now hand over to each of the panelists a small memento and token of appreciation. So in that order, Lakshmidhar Behra, he has gone. So Dr. A.M. Rawani. Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy. Professor B.S. Murthy. Dr. Vinita Sahar. Professor Mahesh Chandra Govind. Dipankar Bhattacharya. And may I request all the panelists to gather together for a